We're being bombarded with a cocktail of chemicals from on high. Those white vapor trails in the sky left by aircraft are government weather modification cover-up, and in the process we're all being slowly poisoned. Chemtrails are happening, and that they are for climate engineering. We have NASA satellite imagery like that, which you're showing right now, that clearly no one needs to know anything about meteorology to see that there's very unnatural patterns in those cloud formations, in fact, patterns that nature cannot make. In addition to our testing of precipitation, the climate engineering components in the precipitation, aluminum, barium, strontium, polymer fibers, using a flying laboratory that NOAA, National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration, also uses, and we have just confirmed the same climate engineering elements that were emitted from aircraft in a layer that we flew through. We have film footage of these aircraft at altitude turning on and off. You can't turn condensation on and off with the nozzles visible. As you see in that particular image you're showing now, you can see the nozzles on the wings. We have up-close photographs as well. If people don't believe what they see with their own eyes, I think there's not much we can show them. Militaries around the globe, starting with the U.S. military, state emphatically and on the record the stated scientific purpose. And by the way, we have every science institution, every climate science institution around the globe discussing exactly what we see in our skies as something that needs to be done immediately.
Certain Americans have urgent and important questions about geoengineering and contrails. The American public deserves and expects honesty and transparency from their government when seeking answers. But for years, people who asked questions in good faith were dismissed, even vilified by the media and their own government. That era is over. The Trump EPA is committed to total transparency. As a result, I tasked my team at EPA to compile a list of everything we know about contrails and geoengineering for the purpose of releasing it to you now publicly. In other words, I want you to know everything I know about these topics, and without any exception. Instead of simply dismissing these questions and concerns as baseless conspiracies, we're meeting them head on. We did the legwork, looked at the science, consulted agency experts, and pulled in relevant outside information to put these online resources together. Everything we know about contrails to solar geoengineering will be in there. That means anyone who reads through this information will know as much about these topics as I do as EPA administrator. To anyone who's ever looked up to the streaks in the sky and asked, what the heck is going on? We're seeing headlines about private actors and even governments looking to blot out the sun in the name of stopping global warming. We've endeavored to answer all of your questions at the links on your screen. In fact, EPA shares many of the same concerns when it comes to potential threats to human health and the environment, especially from solar geoengineering activities. The enthusiasm for experiments that would pump pollutants into the high atmosphere has set off alarm bells here at the Trump EPA. Prior to now, EPA has never been this proactive to raise awareness about concerns with geoengineering and to stop this activity from being scaled up. This is what it looks like when government actually listens to the will of the people and doesn't try to squash it. You can always trust this administration and this EPA to take your concerns seriously, answer your questions honestly, and carry out the will of voters.
You might have seen posts or videos connecting cloud seeding to what is happening in Texas. And then earlier tonight, the CEO of a weather modification company confirmed that planes in Texas did release silver iode into the atmosphere 2 days before the floods. But he also explained why he says scientifically it does not mean that the two events are connected. Watch this.
We're talking about like sub-centimeter amounts of precipitation, be it in snow or rain from every event, which in aggregate can mean hundreds of acre feet, which is very consequential for farmers and ecosystems, but cannot come close to causing flooding unto itself.
And NBC News climate reporter Chase Kane joins us now. Chase, any conspiracy always starts with like a thread of truth here. Can you explain the science? Like, what is cloud seeding, first off, and how is it being used in Texas?
Yeah, so cloud seeding is really this idea for farmers of like, hey, there's some moisture up there in the clouds. Is there a way that we can get it out of the clouds down here to the surface to help farmers? Because water vapor that's in the air needs something to grab onto, which is often like smaller than the tip of a pen. So you're thinking like pollens, particles of pollen or dust or even air pollution. So you see this graphic here. Basically what they do is they fly planes up there to give the water vapor something to grab onto. So it's a combination of silver iodide and salt, actually. And so the water vapor forms around that. Eventually it gets heavy enough and then falls to the surface of rain. So when that happens, we're talking really small amounts of rain. In fact, scientists have been debating for decades whether or not this is actually very effective to do. So even when it does work, Gotti, we're not talking about a lot of rain, certainly not the amount of rain that they saw in Texas last week.
And the timing of it, 2 days before, I mean, you know, again, anybody online that seems to be an expert these days would say, well, no, this is what, you know, started the flood or possibly like supercharged the soil so it was hydrophobic. Like, well, take us through the timeline here.
Yeah, that's a really important point, Gotti, because this cloud seeding, it works within like 15 minutes, half an hour, maybe an hour, and then that's it. So that was done 2 days before. So the CEO saying this, other scientific research establishes that cloud seeding isn't going to trigger something like this, certainly not 2 days after they were doing it. They were only up in the air cloud seeding for about 20 minutes because, again, it's targeted to a pretty small area of land, which was not even over where the worst of this flooding was, Gotti. So we're talking 30 minutes to an hour, certainly not 2 days in advance.
And I mean, cloud seeding is human-caused climate change on a very micro level, but when we're talking about climate change on the macro level, does it look like this flood has any links to climate change?
Przypominamy, że na naszym kanale nie ma płatnych reklam i jeżeli uważasz, że robimy coś wartościowego, to możesz wesprzeć naszą pracę poprzez datek dowolnej wartości. Możesz też nas wspomóc, odwiedzając sklep partnerski KILLUMINATI, który oferuje odzież, literaturę dla wszystkich przebudzonych. Jest to świetna forma wyjścia z przekazem poza internet. Linki znajdziesz pod filmem. Pozdrawiamy, KILLUMINATI Team. Dodaj łapkę w górę i subskrybuj nasz kanał. Pozdrawiamy, KILLUMINATI Team.